Let's unbox the Vintage Collection Boba Fett Tatooine Deluxe figure from the Book of Boba Fett. Varykino. If it's Star Wars, we collect it. Hello there. Thanks for visiting Varykino. This past weekend we met Boba Fett himself, Temuera Morrison, at our local Armageddon Expo convention, so to celebrate we'll be unboxing Boba Fett collectibles this week. Today I'm going to be unboxing this Vintage Collection Deluxe figure of Boba Fett, Tatooine version as seen in the Book of Boba Fett. Ever since Boba Fett returned in the Mandalorian live-action series, we see him wear several different versions of his iconic armor. Once he comes out of the Sarlacc pit, he goes on a journey, gets his armor back, and we see him wear a mix and match of his Mandalorian armor and Tusken robes. And then when we finally get to the Book of Boba Fett, he seems to have sort of settled in his final outfit here with the sort of black undersuit and his iconic armor. So, personally for me, I'm trying to collect up all of the different versions of Boba Fett from both the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett in both Vintage Collection and Black Series lines. I want to collect them all, so of course I had to add this one to my collection. Very excited to take a look. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Coming up really soon, I'll of course get the figure out of the box so we can take a closer look at all of the details and accessories. But first, let's take one last look at the packaging. The packaging for this deluxe figure is very similar in shape and size to a classic Vintage Collection backing card, but instead of the clear bubble window here showing the figure, we have a windowless cardboard box mounted as it were on the front of a backing card. I kind of miss being able to see the figure there. We've got the Book of Boba Fett series logo here in red, and we have the character name here, Boba Fett in brackets Tatooine, because of course we have several different versions of Boba Fett now in the live action series. Because we don't have a window bubble here with a color accent behind the figure, we also are missing that color nameplate that I really do like. It really reminisces back to that original Kenner style. We do have the chrome racetrack print here, which goes across the top of that cardboard box, which is kind of fun. But another element that I'm really missing is, of course, the character photo here. I'm really missing it. We do have this really nice art here, the photography of the action figure posed very nicely on sand not included. We've got some of the accessories featured here as well, the flame effects, the stormtrooper helmets, and we have this fun retro style print here advertising that this is a removable rocket, very reminiscent of the unreleased prototype version of Boba Fett way back when with the rocket firing. They're very careful not to say that this actually does fire, it's just removable. I think that that's kind of a fun nod. On the side here, we have an insert picture of those two Stormtrooper accessory helmets, again pictured in sand. And on the other side, we have a close-up picture of the Boba Fett face underneath the helmet, because of course he is pictured with his helmet on here. So that's a nice little preview there. On the back, we have that same picture there of the figure posed with sand. We have the series logo, the Vintage Collection logo, and over here, because we can't see everything that's in the box, we now have a little bit of a diagram of everything that is included inside. We can see we have a figure with a Boba Fett face, removable helmet, jetpack with removable rocket and some flame effects there, two accessory blasters and two stormtrooper helmets there. So I have a couple of other packaging examples here just for comparison. We can see here one of the older deluxe figure styles before Hasbro started experimenting with their plastic-free packaging approach that we have here. Personally, I much prefer this one. We still get the promotional image from the show of the character over to the side, and because we have an accent color behind the plastic window with the figures, we also have the colored nameplate, which when we compare to a standard Vintage Collection backing card, matches very well. It just kind of fits better with the whole line. Kind of those elements are really missing here. I know that these ones are wider, especially when you compare it to a standard backing backing card, we can see that they are much wider. These ones are about the same width and height. So if you like to put them all alongside each other, these ones match a little bit better in terms of the size. But personally, this one, I know it's not really accurate to the vintage style, but something about it just sort of, for me personally, fits better alongside the standard ones. Also, with the window, we really see what we are getting here. We've got a standard figure with some accessories, including Grogu, a blaster, and a whole lot of spider creatures. This one here, we have Boba Fett, a couple of accessories, we've got some flame effects, and 2 Stormtrooper helmets. Now, without really seeing it all displayed, we don't really know the level of plastic, how much money and value we're getting there compared to something like this. Personally, for me, I think this one feels a lot heavier just by holding it compared to this one. Even with the extra cardboard here on the front, there's something about this one that just feels like I'm getting a little bit more for my money compared to this one. And I like the way it matches with the standard vintage backing cards for the collectors that do really appreciate the packaging style. Also, you may have noticed this one does not have a VC number. I know that is a small detail, but personally for me, I like to keep track of all of the figures I have from the vintage collection. It's just something about being a bit of a completionist. It's just easier to see those numbers. This packaging style does actually include the VC number here, though if you are aware, this one actually has the same number as another figure. So every now and again, Hasbro does get it wrong. This one is also the same VC number as the Elite Squad Trooper 3.75-inch figure from the Bad Batch, so mistakes do happen. But on the whole, I much prefer this packaging style. I really wish the modern deluxe figures went back to the style. I just think it's really fun. I think it just looks really cool. And especially if you are a mint on card collector, you can't see your figures behind cardboard here. And personally for me, I know that there is always a risk of having these opened and having something stolen in the store because you can't really see what's missing. So personally for me, I'm very careful to check the sellotape on my figures, the deluxe ones, before I purchase them. This one, you can clearly see if it's been tampered with, and you can see the paint job. Make sure nothing's really wrong, nothing's really throwing you off. You can clearly inspect it, and it just looks so nice to keep carded for your display. If you like to keep your figures carded, I think that is something you really do miss out on this one. But enough about the packaging. Let's get this one open and take a closer look at all of those accessories. So I'm going to open this box up on this side, I think. I'm just going to cut through the sellotape there for the first time. Always nice knowing that these are properly sealed. I'm going to go in, and hopefully it's not going to be too much of a fuss to open up. I do like to keep my packaging. This one's a little bit tight. There we go. Less stressful than trying to cleanly remove the bubble off a vintage card, to be sure, but still want to make sure everything's nice in there. And there we go. We can see him packaged on the cardboard insert, and we've got a couple of paper envelopes containing all of the accessories. Again, I don't really feel like this is what I would really expect for a deluxe price point. This kind of feels like something that we could fit onto a standard backing card, but nevertheless, I did collect him. I did add him to my collection. Let's see if we can get him out of this. It's kind of, no, I think I'm going to have to, yes, take this off because he's got some soft goods on him, and I'm not sure I really want to risk tugging on that too much. There we go. Okay, so here we've got the figure. They always come out of the packaging a little bit funny when they've been in these little cardboard sleeves. And then we've also got all of these paper envelopes here as well. So let's just get these out. Okay, so everything's very well sellotaped together. Let's have a look at all of these accessories in here. So I think this one has the blasters. Oh, we've got a few things in here. Okay, we've got his blaster rifle in there. We've got, okay, so you can see that flame is askew. I'm hoping that's not bent. Maybe it is removable. Phew, okay, I'll let me going there for a minute. Okay, so that just clicks in there. I was really worried about that. Another one of those sort of anxious moments because you can't see when you buy these toys what's on the inside. And then we have a very small little flat blaster pistol there as well. In the other accessory packet, let's open this one up. We're going to find, we have one Stormtrooper helmet with the sort of peg attachment point. I don't know. I guess this is just from another figure, so they've just kept the same attachment point, even though I'm not really going to be putting this on the Boba Fett figure as attached. I've got some fun detail to check out later. We also have the jetpack. Kind of looks funny without that top rocket mounted on it. Very cool. Then we have the helmet. Some really nice weathering on that one. And we have another Stormtrooper helmet. Again, also has that peg attachment point there as well. It's not a, I don't know why I was expecting the ones with just the sort of to wear over the top, but I know that Hasbro don't make those kind of Stormtrooper helmets to wear over the top. And then we've got two flame effects that can be attached to the jetpack. So I think that's everything I was expecting to find in that. Let's clear out this packaging and take a closer look at everything. So now I have cleared away all of that packaging so we can take a closer look at the action figure and all of the accessories, and you can probably see the same thing that I can. I am sad. You can see the unfortunate misprinting here on the chest. As I was mentioning, the problem with these blind boxes, the deluxe boxes where there's no window, I couldn't see the paint job of this particular figure before I purchased it. And as you can see, the black paint that is supposed to be very well matched up with the lines between the armor plates is completely miscentered, and it is now, this black line is now on the armor paint. If I grab another Boba Fett figure, this one is VC252. Here you can see just how nice that looks when the black paint is very nicely in between the armor plates, as it should be. And here you can see it looks like somebody's drawn on it with a black pen, and it's really messed up around the Iron Heart detail there in the middle as well. It is just, oh, such a shame. This is one of the things that I really don't like about those blind packaging, because I can't see the paint job of a figure before I buy it. There is no way I would have purchased this figure if I could see this detail. I would have left it for somebody else, perhaps a kid that is not really going to notice this. They're just going to play with a cool Boba Fett figure. But for collectors, this is a make or break flaw. For me, this is very sad. I don't like being negative. I do really have a lot of fun when I open up my Star Wars figures, but I do expect a little bit better from Hasbro, and I'm disappointed here. Not to dwell on it, had to mention that, but of course let's move on. Let's take a look at the other details here. I do like the sculpt that they have used for Boba Fett. I do think it's a pretty good likeness of Temuera. We've even got a little bit of some scarring here, very, very faint white lines. Of course, in the Book of Boba Fett, in the sort of present tense scenes, he has gone through his back-to-tank treatments, and the scarring from the Sarlacc pit has faded. So of course the scars on his face are very, very faint. We've just got some very, very faint white lines. They almost might not show up on camera. Very faint. I like that. Of course, we've got some lovely digital printing details for the eyes, eyebrows, and lips. Of course, he doesn't have hair, so we don't have really much else here to speak on. A little bit of a misalignment here with that neck bit. That looks a little bit better there. It was just a little bit forward there. Looks pretty good. And for the most part, I think the rest of the painting looks good. We've got a yellow shoulder armor plate there with the Mythosaur symbol. It's kind of funny because the symbol here looks well painted. It doesn't look too misaligned. Of course, the weathering is all just a little bit off center here as well. We can kind of see the silver, the bits and pieces around here are just so completely misaligned. Yellow's reasonably tidy. We've got, oh no, we've got a little bit of a splodge there, a little bit there. That's a bit of a shame. The gauntlets, I'm looking, I think they're tidy. We've got some nice tidy detail here with this sort of little rocket there on his gauntlet there. That looks tidy. We've got, I think this is pretty well aligned. I'm looking at everything close up now. We've got the gold buckle detail and the ammo on his belt. We've got the strap painted on his thigh. And of course we've got the holster here, the yellow knee armor pieces, and we've got the sort of the dark brown, more reddish toned boot spats here over his grey boots. So the rest of it I think is well painted. We've got, this is, not sure what this is. This looks like a little bit of extra plastic. It like hasn't been trimmed or something. It's like a little bit of brown, reddish brown plastic just sticking down from his belt over the soft goods. It's just a little bit weird. Kind of catches my eye there. It's probably going to be hidden when I put the jetpack on there. And of course we have soft goods here for his sort of lower robe section there. Just to compare with that other Boba Fett figure that I had there for a moment. This one is the Morak version of Boba Fett as seen in The Mandalorian. So I opened this one up just yesterday and I was really intrigued by the fabric they used because you can kind of see this one is going to fray like mad if I touch it too much. It's got a lot of loose fibers, you can see here. This is going to, I like the texture, but it is going to fray, and I just don't see that it's going to really hold up over time. We can see that we have very different fabrics here. If I can catch that in the light, this one feels more like what we usually see robes like Vader's cape used. It's got a much tidier edge to it. You can make it sort of fluff up if you're rough with it. You will still lose some black fibers, and you can probably see a few black fibers on my fingers from holding it, but this one is going to hold up with time a little bit better. The texture on this feels very much like a Tuscan robe. I think the texture of it's fabulous, but those edges, very rough. And if you do like to keep your figures carded, this one did come in a bubble. Some of these fibers can get into really awkward positions, but yeah. Generally speaking, a lot of the details on these two figures are the same while I have this one out. The main difference here is that we have different pants. We can see he still has his sort of billowy Tuscan pants on his Morak version. Here he has shifted to his more sort of undersuit, flight suit pants, much more fitted, and his boot spats are different. Grey here and more of that reddish brown there. A lot of the same detail on the chest plate. And the face, we've got just subtly red lines here for his scarring, very faint white lines on this version. But you can see a lot of the costume details, particularly from the upper torso, very, very similar there. But yes, a little bit different for the rocket firing section here on his gauntlet. This one is silver with gold, this one is black with silver. Very different there. And we can see those shoulder details there, the painted mythosaur symbol. I like the orange, the yellow orange paint on this one. It's a bit thicker. We've got a little bit of sort of the black plastic showing through here where it hasn't quite covered it all completely. I just like the vibrant color of this one. Works a little bit better for that printed detail over the top. But yes, very fun to see these side by side. I know that for some fans, if you already owned this one, you would be considering about whether buying the deluxe version, because of course this one came on a standard card. This one with its flame effects and 2 extra stormtrooper helmets made this one a deluxe, and it's hard to see what the difference in price point is because of course this one does come with a jetpack as well. Do we really need those flame effects and stormtrooper helmets? Let's continue, and well, I'm not too sure, especially considering the paint job on this one. So let's get his jetpack on. We can see the details, nothing terribly sort of detailed here, just simply painted. We've got sort of a half crescent, a half circle shape here, so it's going to go on in one sort of direction there. We've got some extra detail here. Actually, that one has a lot more painted detail than the other one. I kept reaching for this one to compare. We've got a lot of different painted stripes here, a lot more blue on this one. Very interesting. And we don't have the yellow around the outside of sort of the exhaust bits there that we do on this one. Very interesting. Okay, I keep comparing them because of course he does go through a few differences with his armor. Okay, nice and secure. That one clips on pretty tightly. It's not going to come off. Definitely looks better with the jetpack on. Very nice. Okay. So I'm assuming that this one's going to have very similar articulation to the other figure that I keep comparing this one to. The shoulder pieces are rubbery and flexible, and they're kind of just attached here at the very, very top. Although this is obviously supposed to be sort of the sleeve of his tunic, we can pull that all the way up So that's going to let us move his arm up quite high, which is good. I'm expecting pretty standard vintage figure articulation. We can get the arm in quite tightly there. We can rotate the hand. Looks like it's going to be a good grip, I'm hoping. Probably similar to the other Boba Fett figures that we already have, so that he can hold some accessories. Of course, he has this kind of tubing here on this arm. This is also rubbery, but because it is attached to this tubing in a very permanent manner, which is attached to his forearm, it doesn't flex up in quite the same way. It's restricted, we can't lift it all the way up, and I'm hoping that, like the other one, it doesn't actually stop us from bending the elbow. Always a consideration there, because of course the right arm does tend to be the dominant weapon holding hand for most Star Wars figures. So of course we're going to want to make sure that he can still get some good blaster poses there. And he does have a good trigger finger extended here for holding on to his blasters. Very nice. Just a little quick look at the accessory. If this is anything like the other Boba Fett ones, and it is, it's very bendy through these two little points here, which does make it very hard to hold. Every time I'm trying to get his hand to hold it, it wants to do this. And when you're trying to get a good pose of an action figure, if their blaster is doing this while they're trying to hold it, it just looks weird. So I'm hoping we'll be able to get some poses. I do tend to spend a little bit of time working out some poses with my figures before I finally add them to my display shelf. I did find one of my other Boba Fetts, I had to take quite a while trying to get that into his hand to pose it. So because he doesn't have sort of a mid-torso armor break like Clone Troopers, I do find that the Boba Fett figures tend to move just above the waist, but this one is very tight. I can't sort of click it to the side. He can kind of move, but he really wants to stay there. And he can technically move here, but it's more like for play. He's not really going to, there's a tiny click. That's about it. He's not really articulating. Technically, that's a point of articulation. It's not really going to help us with posing though. It's not really staying at any point, but we can, yeah, it's not, yeah, it doesn't really want to move that much. I'm getting a little bit of shedding from the soft goods cloak here. Now, because he's got his kind of under a suit here instead of those robes, we've got, well, flight suit, I should say, we've got these upper thigh pivot points here so we can swivel his legs out. We can see that we've got a pouch here that is attached to the lower half, so that's going to move with his leg, so we can move that around. The holster is not attached to that strap, so that's not going to stop us from moving the thigh if we want to. Quite flexible here. We'll try putting that blaster in there in a little bit. He's going to have a little bit of movement there at the knees. He doesn't move at the top of the boots like some of them do, but let's have a look. Okay, so his articulation point, very different to how he had the Tusken robes with those sort of billowy knees. We can see the knees there are above the yellow knee plates. Personally, I thought they were going to be underneath, so the knee plates would be more attached to the thighs, so they would continue down in this direction, so the articulation would be sort of hidden beneath this point. So if we bend the knees, at least black articulation does hide a little bit better, but I can kind of see that. Little bit awkward there. And I know I'm not really going to bend my figure back matrix style, but I do kind of prefer it when things kind of hang over the knee a little bit. Just personal preference. I know that's not always the most accurate positioning to put that in there. So we've got a little bit of weathering on those knee plates, some silver there. It's very tidy. And we've got the articulation point at the ankles here. I'm generally very anxious about the articulation point for vintage collection figures. It always feels like you can break it when you see these gaps here like this one here. It makes me very, very nervous. So there we go. So the articulation's all pretty much as expected. So let's check out some of the accessories. And of course, it wouldn't be Boba Fett without his iconic helmet. So this one is a hollow helmet. It isn't like a swappable head where we sort of pop this head off and put this one back on. So I'm hoping it's going to fit on over the sculpted head pretty well. let's take a closer look at the paint job because I am very anxious about this one. So that glossy black for the visor does look tidy. That's a relief. And of course we've got the maroon sort of T-shaped visor accent there, looking very nice. We've got some really nice silver weathering over the front here. Of course, the vintage collection is too small for an articulated rangefinder, but this one is a little bit rubbery, as is the whole helmet. It does help us slip them on over the head sculpt. So we've got those fine little stripes there around the back. We've got more paint jobs. Everything's looking pretty tidy here, which is a relief. Everything's looking good. His helmet is so iconic. We've even got, of course, the little dent there as well. Really nice. Okay, let's see how easy this one is going to go on. It does help that this version of Boba Fett doesn't have hair. Generally speaking, some of those characters with hair, it is very hard to get helmets to fit on over the top. So, of course, his head's going to move a little bit here. Let's get this on. Okay, that went on nicely. Sometimes it helps just to hold their head still because they do want to wobble around a little bit. And of course, in this new generation of Boba Fett, he has this sort of fabric sort of scarf or cowl neck to his tunic, which does kind of help to hide the gap. But I will say his chin does tuck under there very nicely. And overall, because he doesn't have hair, we do get a pretty good tight fit with the helmet. So I do feel like it is pretty well proportioned to the rest of the figure. Sometimes when we've got sculpted hair and then a helmet on top, it ends up being a little bit too big. So we get that sort of swappable head option for some figures to kind of help counterbalance that. But overall, I think that helmet looks really nice. Just such a shame about the chest. Never mind, we'll keep going. So, of course, now we should get his jetpack all assembled. So it was in the kind of on the front cover of the box. They made it look like this would just fit in there. So I'm kind of curious. Okay, it does actually fit all the way in there. And as I discovered while I was unboxing this, I was a little bit worried because it was bent, that this does actually pop off there. So you don't have to have that, but this particular feature, this feels like a play feature. I don't know if I really want to sort of clip it down. Is it just going to sit there like that? It doesn't look too bad, but this feels like something that's going to get lost. And this sort of flame feature, it's not like we're going to be able to pose this flying away from him. So I'm just going to take that off and see how well I can kind of stick this down. Okay, so now that fits in there very tidily, and this is not going to fall off. That fits in there a lot better now. There we go. A little bit of adjustment so that it looks a bit straight, much better. So we can see that we've got sort of a hollow there on the underside. Just curious to see. You can see all the way through that point there. So if you want to store that attached in there, it is actually hollow all the way through. So I get the feeling if you got that stuck in there, it's just going to drop out to the bottom. But let's go and attach these extra flame effects. I really do like these. I like the fact that they are removable. Sometimes they look kind of fun. Sometimes they kind of make them look more like a toy. It's just up to every individual collector whether you appreciate them or you just think they're a little bit more like a sort of a toy feature. So these bits are rubbery. I was having a little bit of a job trying to push them in. I might actually remove his jetpack for this step because those little parts really want to move. I think it's going to be one of those ones where you kind of have to hold it really still and kind of screw them in, twisting them in to kind of get them to hold in. That one, oh, is that one not going to do it for me? Okay, holding it in tight. Okay, they are a little bit hard to attach because these little bits want to really move and they've got such a narrow attachment point. I was really worried they were going to bend a little bit too much. So now we can get them attached. Looking cool. very close to his soft goods skirt, of course, the lower part of his robes. But then, of course, we do see a couple of other characters with jetpacks and robes in The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett. I think he looks pretty cool. Again, possibly a bit more interesting if you want to pose him in sort of a rocketing up pose. It always looks a little bit weird when they've got their rockets on and they're standing on the ground, but we've got options. That's always fun. So before I move on to the weapons, because that's always a little bit tricky, they are a little bit flexible, I want to take a quick moment to look at these Stormtrooper helmets. So it kind of threw me off just a little bit when I noticed that they had the pigs on the underside. Now those are normally for when you are swapping the head and a helmet component off a figure, but we don't have a Stormtrooper figure for these to go with. So I'm not sure if these are intentionally like this so that you can grab a TVC figure and swap these on. So I do actually have a vintage collection figure on hand. I might have a go and see if I can pop these on just to see what they'd look like. So I have here another vintage collection Stormtrooper. This is the artillery Stormtrooper that also came in a deluxe box from the Mandalorian series. And so if I pull off his helmet, he's got that same style of attachment peg. So I know that these ones are battle damaged. You know, they clearly have had a rough day. I really do like the sculpting, but in case you're curious, and I know I'm curious, let's see if we can get this onto this figure body. There we go. So it's kind of the makings of like a death trooper, the old school zombie troopers. So if you want to have some fun customizing, you could swap this out. That's kind of fun. And it's a little bit easier to show you the detail here, so I'm not actually having to hold the helmet itself. So we've got, I think this is dark green lenses. We don't really have the teeth sculpted, but we've actually got some deep cut-ins here on the cheek. You can kind of see it, and we've also got a cut across the brow there as well. We've got a little bit of sort of damage here around the front. It's almost like a moss color. It's not like a sand color, it's quite a green. It kind of just makes me think of moss. And I don't know if that's supposed to be battle damage or a paint floor, to be honest. There's a bit of a scratch there on the back with some black paint. Again here, don't know if that's battle damage or paint, but honestly, when the front looks this damaged, I'm not too fussy about the weathering. Okay, let's pop this one off and let's try the next one. See if I can get this one. Just got to get the pegs a little bit easier if it's in the middle. Okay, and let's get this one on. Is he going to go on? I think he's clicked on. There we go. That one didn't quite make the same sound. So again, we've kind of got this big, I like this one, kind of like this big shatter crack mark here on the top. And then we've got another sort of split here. Really fun. Some really nice detail there. And of course, they're probably not going to be standing upright with this amount of damage to their helmets, but you could probably do some fun attack stuff, you know, stormtroopers lying on the ground or something like that. I know that these helmets are just for display. They are shown in the sand, and this isn't, something about the green on this is making me think of the Tython scenes where Boba is attacking the stormtroopers with his gaffy stick. The sort of damage here makes me think of that, particularly with that subtle green tint to it. And this one you can really see the green on those lenses, which is really quite interesting. But yes, we'll take that one back off. That one pops off very nicely. And see, the original Stormtrooper helmet, this one has a white peg there. And we just pop them back together again. Very good. Very good. Okay, so that was kind of fun. But yes, I think these are designed to be just accessory pieces. And they have simply made them not as hollow Stormtrooper helmets. I don't know why I was expecting hollow. Something about just the fact that Boba Fett's helmet is hollow. I was expecting these to be hollow as well. But there we go. They're very fun. I like the detail. And they are different sculpt. This one has got such a deep slash. Really, really fun. Are they worth the extra deluxe price point? Honestly, this is the tricky question. I'm not really sure. This doesn't feel like a tremendous amount of plastic. For an accessory, they're just going to sit on the display shelf. They're not like a whole creature or something like that. And then of course we've got a couple of flame effects. We've got 3, and this part detaches as opposed to being fixed as on other versions. And then we have the standard accessories. So we've got a very small little blaster pistol here, kind of soft in the way of details, but it is very small, mostly dark grey with a little bit of brown paint here for the grip. It is very small. I'm not expecting it to be too hard for Boba Fett to hold it. It's going to fit in his hand quite well because it is small. If I can just get his finger to sort of match up there. There we go. Very small, but pretty well proportioned for his hand. Holds that pretty well. Let's go and put that one into his holster here. It doesn't have a hole at the bottom, but it does fit in here pretty well because it is very thin. I've got a lot of accessories on Boba Fett now. We've got all sorts of stuff going on with this blaster effect there. So that fits in there. Just trying to sort of tip him a bit at the waist so that blaster effect isn't so close to his holster. There we go. And as I mentioned before, this is a very nice accessory. It's very iconic. We've got some really nice painting details here. We've got silver, dark grey, and brown. We've got the details here. Very nice, but it bends a lot and it freaks me out trying to get this thing into his hands, and it's very, very flexible. It's very hard to get it to pose. Just taking a look at the one that came with the Morak version, we do have a subtly different paint effect here. This one is Tatooine, where the end is painted in silver. The Morak version is all straight grey there. Same brown accents on the end there though, which is interesting. This one's got a little bit of brown here on the grip. We don't have that here. So different accessories, the same sculpt but different paint effect. So that's helpful in case you end up mixing up some of your accessories. I do like to try and keep mine matching with the figure that they came with. So speaking from experience, this is a tricky weapon to get him to hold. So I'm probably going to spend a bit of time putting this one into his grip in a moment, because if I give you a little bit of a demonstration, as soon as you can try and hook it into his hand, it just wants to bend a lot. And there's probably a lot of people out there that are just a little bit more experienced with this sort of thing than me, but he just kind of trying to do it like that, it just looks awkward. And so you got to spend a lot of time kind of getting his hand in the right way. And I do find because of the shape of this grip, he does drop it very easily. So it's a little bit tricky, but yeah. I'll spend a bit of time getting this into a proper pose. I just want to do one last quick little comparison between this figure and this one here, the Morak one, which also doesn't have his blaster in his hands. If I just pop this one's helmet back on him, because I think there is a question about whether these two are really sort of equal or with the same price point. So they are not the same figure. If you're going to be completionist and you want the different versions, this one is Boba Fett as seen on Morak, the planet in The Mandalorian. This is how we see Boba Fett on Tatooine in the Book of Boba Fett. And we can see that from the waist down, he is very different. And of course, unfortunately, the chest details on these two figures are also very different, very sad. For the most part, if you're looking to add a figure to your collection, I would probably I think personally, I really like this one. I do have my anxious moments with the fraying nature of this fabric, but I think the texture does work very well. And overall, I kind of like them. I do have a little bit of a paint splodge on this one here, which is unfortunate, but I don't really notice it. And the chest is very tidy. The helmet looks really nice. This one, we've got that tidier skirt that is definitely going to hold up a little bit. We've got those extra accessory points on the back that this one doesn't have. But I don't know that those flames and the two Stormtrooper helmets really make up the price point between these two figures, which I think is a shame, especially as collectors when we know that there's a lot of similarities between these ones. Some of us, you know, we have to pick and choose sometimes. I know a lot of us wish we could collect them all, but we have to sometimes prioritize which ones we're going to add to our collection. And because I couldn't check the paint job on this one, I am unfortunately experiencing a little bit of disappointment because of the higher price point of this figure. I know that means I'm not going to get, you know, an exquisitely hand-painted, the price point isn't for, you know, a higher quality. We're simply getting a few more plastic pieces here. It is unfortunate that we've got that lower quality in terms of the paint up there on the chest. And the fact that, personally, for myself, I find myself in the position of I'm probably going to track down another version of this figure. It's sad. I don't really want to have to buy a second one. Generally speaking, the times I buy a figure twice are for army builders, like a classic stormtrooper, or for a very special figure where I want to keep it mint on card, and one to open to add to my general action figure display. I don't like buying figures twice. I do like to leave them on the shelf for other collectors to find. And this one, I'm not 100% happy with it, and I don't really want to add something like this. If I can replace this, I'm certainly going to swap it out, as it were. I'm hoping that I can find another one of this. Maybe I can find one on sale. Fingers crossed. It is slightly older. Maybe I can find one on sale, open that one, check its paint job, and maybe I can sell this one at a discount to a fan that wasn't able to add it to their collection originally. Or perhaps give it to a niece or nephew that would love a Boba Fett toy to play with, because I'm not sure another collector is really going to want to accept this as well, even at a sale or price discount. Very, very unfortunate, but there you go. Another reason why I'm not a big fan of those packaging. Initially, it was just mostly because I like the vibe and the sort of vintage aesthetic of those wider bubble cards. But of course, we also can't see the paint job, and I really don't like to go on about a negative. I like to have fun with my Star Wars toys. They are exciting to open, exciting to get to see all the details. I immediately can sort of hear Temuera's voice as Boba Fett. I think back, I just recently did a rewatch of the Book of Boba Fett. I enjoyed that show immensely. I've been wanting to get out my figures and build up a display. Fingers crossed we get a Rancor at some point in the future. I want to add Boba Fett on a Rancor to my display. That would be amazing. But personally for me, this figure kind of falls below my level that I'm willing to accept in terms of the paint detail. I want a better paint job one. And yeah, that's what it comes down to. Very unfortunate, but there you go. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I know this one was a little bit different. I opened up another Star Wars collectible. I had some fun. I had some other not so fun moments, but I guess that happens from time to time. I hope you have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the galaxy, and let's hang out again soon for more Star Wars unboxing adventures. May the Force be with you. If you're a fan of the vintage collection, I recently opened up the Boba Fett Morak figure. That video is linked here in case you haven't already seen it, as well as our whole vintage collection playlist. This is the way.